Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and thank you for tuning in to another episode of The H, an honest conversation about health, hemp, and happiness. Mr. Fuck Joe, how are you doing over there today, my friend?
I'm doing just fine, Mr. Unabomber Brandon. How are you?
I am sitting at the front of the house, so the sun is setting directly over here, and when I set up, I thought this was going to be a safe area, did not realize that I have two sheets.
Brandon, this is a safe place. Are you okay? We could talk about it. Are you in immediate danger of physical harm?
Maybe. There is a puppy right here.
Puppy. You're okay.
Yeah, I got the puppy, so I'm good now. This is my puppy. But we're here today. We have actually a fun show planned today, man. We've been running around getting things done. You've been doing some training and health coaching and that. Tell me how that's going.
It's going good. Obviously, we've had our technical difficulties that have slowed things down a little bit, but it's part of life. You're going to always have things thrown in your plans, and you have to adapt. So I think we're handling that pretty well, and we'll be back to normal and operating as normal soon for both of us. So once that is in the past, I assume we'll be off and running. And besides, the weather has been actually very nice. So, puts a lot of people in a good mood.
I like how you're taking this. You took COVID by the canones and you literally went out and said, no, there's too many people that are not eating right. They're not doing things right. And they don't understand what they're doing. And you, like you did to me, you were a jerk to me, but you got me to understand the proper way of working out and all that. So I know you're going to be very successful with what your new adventure is, buddy. I'm very proud of you. You're welcome.
Well, thank you. And I think what's been nice about COVID, obviously it's a horrible thing, but one of the silver linings is it's really pushed the digital era on a lot of people and kind of forced them to see the benefits of it and get used to it. And I teach a lot of people, it's not that hard, and you get to connect with so many people around the world. And I think it's a beautiful thing in a way. I mean, there's some negatives, but overall, I think it's good.
I agree. So we have our guest today, Mr. Danny Greeves. He is an author, speaker, and coach that discussing the mind and human behavior. He specializes in how to increase confidence, productivity, and clear trauma. All things I think every single person has had in their life and needs, because I might be handsome double, but at the end of the day, I only say that to make people laugh. The confidence thing has always been something I need to work on. But his background was a psychologist working in the advanced neurological therapy treatments, where he was struggling with his own issues around anxiety and self-confidence. At 27, he had been a single all his life, and then had a session with a coach and a hypnotherapist. Learning about the subconscious mind, 10 days later, he met his fiancée. Since then, he has been studying and training hypnotherapy, mental coaching, and behavioral change consultant, and learning about how the mind works and how we can clear pain from the past to reach our full potential. Ladies and gentlemen, it is an honor to introduce Mr. Danny Greeves. Good evening, Mr. Danny Greeves. How are you? Am I saying that correctly?
You are indeed. Danny Greeves. That's my name.
Perfect. I was like, I didn't ask backstage and wanted to make sure I said it correctly. So
you were on it.
You have, all right, talk to me. You were single your whole life, and according to your bio, and then you turn around and you go to one hypnotherapy session and you find your fiance 10 days later. First off, where was your therapist so I could send Joe and find his future wife 10 days later? Second off, tell us about how that was.
Yeah, it was a number of different events that all kind of just fell into one little timeline. So it'd been something that I'd been really conscious about since I was about 15. There's people around me, and some people just find it really easy to get into a relationship. Other people just do one after the other. And then there's other people who tend to not do so well in that area. Mm-hmm. So although I had lots of friends and I had lots of girlfriends, the relationship part for me was it was a challenge. I was swiping every app you can think of. I was going on speed dates. I was doing all the work, but it just wasn't really working. And then after a little bit of exploration, I booked in to have a session with a coach, and I was like, right, I've got to do something. I need to do something different. And then I can't really tell you what happened in the session. I know there was tears, there was shaking, there was all sorts of different things. But then 10 days later, I met my fiancée. So something changed. And then I thought, I need to know how this works.
So I have to ask, what was the difference right off the bat? Like you like you said, I've done, just so everybody knows, I've just done my first few sessions of hypnotherapy. So Danny is at a point in his life years later that he's been understanding this, he's been learning about it, and I'm just starting this. So I was like super excited to have him on, reading his bio and talk about why all of this. My first session, I sat there, I was hypnotized, and my hypnotherapist, she asked me a bunch of questions afterwards, and it was very interesting because I don't remember anything that happened, but I was answering all this stuff and I thought I was crazy because of it. And she's like, no, Brandon, that means we're doing it right. You're doing very well. Keep going. So when you got there, what was your first thoughts going into a hypnotherapy session?
Well, it was a combination of coaching and hypnotherapy. So to be honest, I didn't really know what I was logging into. So I just knew that there would be a session, and then I knew that I forgot half of it. So there was chatting at the start, and then there was an end point, but in between that, it was a little bit hazy.
Gotcha. So self-confidence in that. How do you build yourself up? It's not just going to a session and meeting your fiance. There's a lot of work that goes into this, and starting from the first time you went in there, how did you start learning to build yourself up and give yourself better self-confidence?
Well, the route in that I took was working with old emotional baggage. I mean, I think there's lots of different ways in that you can do it, but my in point was actually working on the mental side of things first. And what I didn't realize was just how much baggage that I'd been carrying. And I'm not talking like really severe, awful traumas like some people have had. I'm not saying that at all, but just that baggage that builds up over time where you've been embarrassed or you've been ashamed or you've been anxious, and it just kind of accumulates. And I think a lot of people don't actually take the time to have a look and see what's there, because it's a bit of a scary place to go. But after being confronted with it, I kind of decided that I had to have a look. And the more I looked, the more I found, but actually the more I cleared. And I could just feel weights being lifted and lifted and lifted. And it was just something that I knew I had to keep doing because things were kept getting better. And then after that mental side was when I started to have a look at more of the physical side, like the exercise, getting myself in a little bit better shape, eating a little bit more healthily. So the mental side started it, and then I added the extra bits in, because I think that we need them all for us to be confident.
I agree. I love that you say you started with the mental and then started bringing the other things in. And so many people start with like a diet or an exercise routine, but then they always fall not always, they fall short. But the reason they fall short is only because that's a big part of it. People don't realize how much the mental plays a crucial role. When you say baggage, like, honestly, I know what you mean. I like to ask questions so everybody understands and can and relate. With the baggage you're talking about, that's emotional, it's physical, it's many different layers. How does a hypnotherapist, actually talk you through some of those personal baggage issues and help you get over that?
Yeah, so it's a little bit of a detective process, but the guideline that you can think of it is that if you have a problem in the now, it's not actually the now that's the problem, it's the past that's being projected forwards. So if we think about what the problem is now, we can start to reverse engineer it and then figure out where it came from. And then when we do a little bit of work to clear that up, then the present and the future, that just clears through as well. So it's really asking quality questions to actually find the moment, to find the pieces that are highest priority, because we could theoretically go see a coach or a therapist probably every week for the rest of our lives, and there would always be stuff to work on. But the key is finding the high priority bits, the bits that make the biggest impact in the smallest amount of time. And that's how we can kind of get those shifts. So it's an ever-going process, but when we get the right bits, then we can get big changes quite quickly.
So the first time you went, and Joe, you know me, you're going to have to jump in here. I'm like got 10 questions ready to and lined up. So yell at me to get in. But the first time you went, were you open to the experience? Have you ever been hypnotized or anything like that before? Because that's a brand new thing for a lot of people that when they hear that, that's like, I don't know if that's me or not. What made you decide to go there and actually try doing hypnotherapy?
It was mainly the lesser of two evils, to be honest, because what I really didn't want to do was go and speak to someone and just tell them all about my problems. I didn't want to sit there and share all my stories and all the details. I kind of just wanted a result, and hypnotherapy was a way that I knew I could share a little bit of information, but I didn't have to, go into all the details and all the minutiae of what happened. We can use little bits of information and then we can get the result that way. And I think one of the reasons a lot of people get put off from actually seeking help is because the idea of going to see someone you don't really know and then telling them your deepest stories and your secrets, it doesn't sound very appealing. So I kind of think of it as, if we work with little fragments, bits of data rather than stories, then I think it's better for both sides. And hypnotherapy and coaching allows us to do that. So it was kind of the way that worked for me.
I love that. I think that's a great way of saying it, a great way of helping people, because a lot of people do. I know people that we talk about on this a lot, how people don't go to therapy. A lot of people think they hear it and they're like, oh, no, that's not for me. And they're like, I'm not broken like that. Or I'm using that freely. But
yes, yeah.
It's one of those things where when you start going and opening up, that's really hard. And being able to take little pieces at a time and fix it are essential. And I think that was a great way of phrasing that, because my parts of my life having to be fixed and Joe's parts of his, because he's quiet, you got to be able to repair those. And you might not realize how you're doing it when you keep bringing up the same things and going through the same cycles. This helps you separate that. I love that. Very well said. Joe, do you have a question? I think he froze.
Yeah, why did you mute me?
I didn't.
I was talking this entire time. I'm kidding. Got him. So, question though. I mean, I always love learning about new subjects, and I just think it's interesting because we're all different. So, people have different approaches. I think some people get comfort in a therapy because it's a stranger. And then you have the other people where it's very uncomfortable because it's a stranger, whether to opening up to friends, they might tell them some stories, but obviously the dark parts in the closet, it's not that they're embarrassed. It's just, they're hard to go over and rehash. And I know we've talked about with some of our other guests who've been through some very traumatic experiences. You could tell they healed because they talk about it like they're a stand-up comic and it's a joke. And that's always to me a very good sign that someone's healed. But when you hear the timid in their voice and the, like it's very quick and it's to the point, you could tell they're still really emotionally going through that. So I mean, I'm here to learn about hypnotherapy and with a little coaching. And the last thing I'll say, and I'll let Brandon continue with some good quality questions, is what you said about the mental with the physical. I mean, that's how I train people. It's mental first, because if you can't get that mindset going in the right place, you're not going to complete the physical stuff anyway.
Absolutely.
It's a really big part. So I'm glad to hear that you were focused on the mental and then went to the physical nutrition. And I'm sure that's why you were successful, because if you started the other way and your mental mindset was at a weaker place or just busy, you can't focus on the physical.
Yeah, totally.
So where should... No, you actually did all of that without...
Because my internet's going in and out.
I was very proud of you. It was the first time in a long time.
Okay, good.
So where would you recommend people start
Yeah,
with that?
well,
Like,
that
because
call will get made, sometime in 2020.
so where do you recommend people actually starting? Because going and scheduling an appointment with a therapist is difficult. Be able to, even if they do want to open up, there's still a lot there. Going and visiting and scheduling a time with a hypnotherapist is something a lot of people are still like when I told my parents I was doing it, man, were their faces awesome. Like they both like what do you mean? How do you Joe rocks. Brett's commenting to you, Joe. How do you recommend
Thanks, Brett.
people get starting and putting
That's why I like
themselves
Brett
out
way more
there?
than you.
I understand. And like getting out there and starting something new, getting out there and getting into so the way I say it is loving themselves. How do you recommend people take that first step to love themselves?
I think a little bit about what Joe mentioned in terms of everyone is different. So there certainly won't be one size that fits all, because for some people, the idea of actually just jumping in and going for it is what they need to do, because otherwise they'll just sit on the sidelines forever. There are other people who actually want to kind of get to know the person first. So that's where social media accounts come in. That's where content comes in, where you can find out if that person speaks in a kind of a way that you resonate and you connect with. So I don't think there's one way to do it, but I think probably the most important thing is that whatever way you choose, you just start doing something. It doesn't mean it'll be maybe perfect straight away. You might have to test a couple of techniques to find something that works for you. But the longer you sit back and don't do anything, then the more scary it gets, I think. So just finding something that you've got a little bit of research behind, you've done a little bit of, background work, and then taking the plunge. And it doesn't necessarily mean you have to commit to something huge up front, but it does mean you can get a feel for something, if that makes sense.
It does. So 2020, I'm going to switch topics for a second on this. All right. We're going to come back to your book. 2020 has been rough for a lot of people. And the entire world has experienced this last year together. We've all experienced the loss of something important to us last year. We all know what it's like to have that painful thing. In that time, you wrote a book, The 6 Steps to Self-Confidence. I said that correctly, right? I'm looking at the name. I'm like, wait, did I say that wrong? So the 6 steps to self-confidence.
I wrote it down. I got your back, B. You got it right.
Oh, yeah? Watch this, Joe. There it is on Amazon for everybody to be able to go click, purchase, and have. So own your own copy. So you wrote this in the middle of a pandemic. What led you to wanting to write a book like this? How did you come about?
To be honest, it wasn't something that I'd been thinking about for years. It was something that in 2019, I went to a couple of seminars, I went to a couple of courses, and actually the saying that I remember is, the book that changes your life isn't the one you read, it's the one you write. And I was like, okay, that resonated with me. And then I just thought, if I was to be able to share something, what would I feel most inspired about sharing? So I didn't want to write something just for the sake of writing something. I had to find something that I genuinely love doing. And for me, it was all about setting myself up at the beginning of the day, a little bit like the intro is for your show, setting yourself up at the beginning of the day to get the most out of the day. And I just thought, I've been refining my process for a number of years. I'll share it. And that's how I started. And because we were in the grips of a lockdown, couldn't really go out, couldn't really see people, what I decided to do was, I'm most productive if I've got a target. And I set myself quite an ambitious target, so I didn't have much leeway to sort of relax and switch off. So it was on the intense side, but actually that kept me going. And I didn't really notice too much of what was going on for the first 3 or 4 months, because I was so busy. So it was something that I can be really grateful for having, because it really kept me focused at a time when a lot of people didn't have much to focus on.
Oh yeah, so I wanted to write that quote down. The book that changes your life is not the one that you read. It's the one that you wrote.
Right.
I got half of it, and then I'm like, I don't.
Oh, you got
know
90% of it, I think.
I was like, I didn't write all of that. I was like, I don't want to write the wrong thing and write it again. So, like, is that from somebody? Because I've never heard that before. And I
think it's been passed by a couple of people. I don't know where the original source is, but I always remember the quote.
I loved it. Like, honestly, have you ever wanted to write a book before?
Not before 2019-ish. And I think that's, again, part of my journey in terms of becoming more confident. Because if you would have asked me 10 years ago, then I would have said, I don't have anything valuable to say. Like, people like me don't write books, and no one would want to read it anyway. It's those stories and narratives that we have when we're a bit clouded on where we're going. Whereas as I started to clear stuff and move forwards, then I could begin to appreciate, okay, I've done all this training, I've got some value, and actually I'm just going to go out and share it. So they kind of dovetailed together nicely.
That's awesome. That's awesome. So with writing a book, what was your biggest challenge? Like, you've never wanted to do this. For me, I can't imagine where I'd even start. Like, I sit down and I just write like I'm writing in a journal. And I don't think that's the way I'm supposed to do it, but it's just how I write my book right now. And a lot of it just says "fuck Joe" all over it. But but in all seriousness, what was the hardest part for anybody that would want to write a book? What was the hardest part for you to get there?
I thought when I had the idea, I was actually able to draft out the chapters quite easily. And I actually had the skeleton structure, if you want, quite quickly. And then I wrote a draft version, and then I was kind of like, this is pretty easy, this writing a book thing. And then it came to editing, and I was, editing. So just going through 50,000 words, going through every chapter, cutting down things that are a little bit, gobbledygook, using one word instead of 7. And it just takes so long. And I had 2 proofreaders to help me as well. And by the time I'd finished editing it, I did the same thing. So I went, finally. And then I realized you have to format it. You have to get designers to actually put it together. You have to figure out how to put it onto Amazon Kindle. So there were so many things that I didn't anticipate. So I think if someone was thinking of writing a book, the best thing to do would be actually just to research the whole process through, so you know what the steps are, rather than thinking writing it is just the finish. Actually, it's about half of it. So once you've got an idea, it's less of a nasty shock, and you're a bit more prepared for it. So a bit of research is what I'd recommend.
So don't just write a book that says "fuck Joe" everywhere and send that in. Got it. I'm on that one. I mean, it might be a bestseller if I make them all with a bunch of jokes, So
I am great. That's all it's going to be.
So with that, I know you don't want to give away the secrets of the book because people should buy it, but give us a little bit of a taste. What is a secret what is one of the steps to confidence? Or give me 2. I'm going to get 2 out of you.
Your favorite
I'm just
steps.
warning you.
What are your favorite steps?
My favorite steps. Well, essentially the 6 steps are a way of actually making a holistic approach to improving self-confidence. So a little bit like we covered at the start, you could do all of the personal development in the world, but if you're not exercising, if you're not planning, if you're not questioning the way that you're thinking, then you'll only get so far. Mm-hmm. What I wanted to do was provide a general roadmap so everyone could adjust it for themselves, because my favorite part is actually the personal development bit. It's learning how my mind works and actually clearing out old baggage. But some people actually love the exercise bit more and they get more from that. Some people love the meditation part and get more from that. So I wanted to give a structure so you could tailor it to whatever suits for you, but actually you can design it around what you like. Because if you're being told what to do, then sooner or later you'll get bored with it. If it's yours, then you tend to stick with it.
So, sorry, so I just got like 2 emails that came over my question. So like with that, I like to meditate. And for me, that's where I find my spot. I'm a unique meditator too. I can sit down and be quiet, and nobody believes that. I'm waiting for Joe's head to pop up when I said be quiet. But like for me, it's I have to be able to get alone. But the working out is a challenge for me, and the diet is a challenge for me. I love it. It's Easter in the United States right now, so Cadbury eggs are everywhere, and that is my weakness. And you know,
downstairs.
See, you understand. I told you before we started, this was going to be our best show. This was going to be our best friend like connection. Joe's laughing. So Cadbury eggs and all that aside, how do you keep yourself on that structure? Because I can do meditation, but Joe is not a big meditator. And I know that because he's talked about it. He says, I get distracted and stuff like that. How can people take all those different parts and build it into them? Like you talk about in your book.
Well, if you were to grab a copy, then the exercise at the end of each chapter will help you get there. So I'll share you with it now. So the only reason we do anything is based on our values. So we make small judgments about whether this activity will give us more benefits compared to drawbacks relative to what's most important to us. If we think it's going to give us more positives, we'll do it. If we think it's going to give us more negatives, then we'll procrastinate, then we'll hesitate. So first of all, you need to know what your values are, because your life will demonstrate them, but that will show you where you're already spontaneously inspired to do it. So for Joe, if that's the exercise part, that's the meditation part. So that's where your values lie. Now, if you want to do an extra part, then all you need to do is find out how doing that specific activity will benefit you in what you love and all the areas of life. And the more links you make, the more connections your brain makes with that activity to a desired end state. And then what happens is you become spontaneously inspired to do it, because we've all got very limited willpower. And if you're relying on willpower, probably you'll fall off the wagon fairly regularly. But if you can see with so many links, so many benefits, that actually doing some exercise actually makes you a better meditator, then you're more inspired to do it. So it's just basically building links, building connections, and you'll know when you've got enough because your behavior changes. So if you haven't quite got there yet, you just need more links. And It's just a process you can keep applying.
I like the way you say that. Like you say it so calmly too. And you could ask like a bunch of people that same question, and the answer is going to always be different. But yours is very easy. They link together with that. I like how you phrase that. And just so you know, I bought a copy right when you were talking, so that behind you on Amazon. So it says it should be here by Saturday. So I'm really excited to actually read it.
Nice.
I try to read as much as I can. I read at night. I have books, and I love to interview people who actually are impacting the world. They're changing the world in great ways, and I like the way you're doing this.
Thank you very much.
I'm excited to read your book. After I'm done, I'm gonna make Joe read it. I see the face. I always get to stare with him. So all right, I wrote it down. Where are you located again?
So in Norwich, in the UK.
Yes, Norwich. You got it. In the UK. How is COVID treating you right now?
We had a second lockdown sort of around November time. And then it's been pretty static for 3 or 4 months. And then in the last week or so, we've just been able to start to meet people outdoors again. And then 17th of May, I think, something around there, is when we can start to go to restaurants, we can go to a pub, we can go to sort of like family gatherings. And then in June, then it should be back to normal. So, for example, last Saturday, it was a bit of a somber day in our house because it was supposed to be our wedding day. So we had the Saturday booked, but we had to postpone it. So we've moved that to June So we're now getting things set up for the next wedding. So hopefully within 3 or 4 months we'll be back to normal.
I feel so like your wedding got canceled because of COVID. There's so many that did, but like
many, yeah.
You were so far out, you probably thought there's a chance, and we're hoping for that.
Yeah.
Oh
yeah, we
God,
thought we'd be okay.
So when you're hoping in the next few months, but are you guys still being mask mandated and all that?
Absolutely, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
How's your outdoor events going?
There's almost none at the moment, but they're very close to opening up. So it's on that just before phase at the moment.
So during this lockdown, we're all dealing with these stresses and all that, and you're like, I'm gonna write a book, and it's I'm like, hey, what else am I gonna do? 6 steps to help you with your self-confidence. So someone like me, and I told you I'm gonna bring up some things that I'm going through with this. My hypnosis therapist, she has openly said to me, you need to start looking in the mirror and complimenting yourself. Not like, oh, Brandon, you look so handsome today, but like, I'm worthy to have certain things in my life. I'm worthy of being able to believe in my dreams. And she goes, you need to start believing in yourself because no one can instill that confidence in you without yourself. How do you do that? Like for someone who I'm reading your book 100% because I want to build my confidence, just being honest. So going into this, getting to meet you is absolutely, I'm so excited. I'm going to pass your information to the girl that I do a book club with as well. So we can try to get everybody to do your book.
Oh, awesome.
Oh yeah. You're going to have to join that one. Just so you know, guys, we're going to want you there.
Amazing. Yeah.
I love it. So where do I start? How do I look in the mirror and just say, damn, Brandon, you look good today? Or do I tell me, how do I start building my self-confidence?
Well, I think you made a really good point to start with in the fact that if you just say something because you're supposed to say it, I'm worthy of my dreams. If that doesn't resonate for you, then actually it starts to create the polar opposite effect. Because you subconsciously will know if something fits for you. If you're in front of the mirror and you're saying it and it just really it doesn't resonate with you, then the more you repeat it, it's not going to do anything. You'd be wiser to actually find something that you can start with and that fits for you, and that when you say it, your physiology changes. So, for example, I have like a list of affirmations. And I know the ones that are right for me because when I say them, I'll get almost like a little goosebumps feeling. So I know that one is for me at that moment in time. There'll be others that I just don't really connect to, and I'll let them fade away. There's no judgment with them. I'm either just not ready for it yet or it doesn't fit for me. So I would say, regardless of what specific ones you've been told, if you test them out and then just listen to your physiology, then that'll give you a bit of an insight in terms of if it's right for you. And as long as you're combining it with the other stuff in terms of you're releasing past baggage and you're doing all the other bits and pieces, you might not even be conscious of the trajectory, but you'll just start to be more open to different ideas. And that's sometimes where a little bit of journaling can come in handy, because you can look back on 3 months ago and say, oh, actually, that didn't work for me then. And now when I say it, yeah, that fits. So it's it's a nice way to track it, but it has to be yours. And that kind of comes back to your values again. So if you fit them around you, you'll have a much better chance of it working rather than sort of trying to do something because you think you should.
I like that, because that's where I'm building me, is trying to do that with. I really like to look in the mirror and try to believe what I'm saying, but that's a hard thing for a lot of people. They don't think they're worthy of it, and for me, I've done some crazy cool things, but at the end of the day, I still look at myself and I'm like, and I know that's my thing to get over. So I've been working on that.
We all have days like that. So
exactly,
it's also important to recognize that regardless of how confident you are, you're confident in certain contexts, but you could be put into a totally different context, and then all of your confidence fades away.
Yep.
So the idea of being like that all the time is also, it's not helpful, because it's actually nice to appreciate that we're all going to have ups and downs. We all have positives and negatives, and actually the negative voice that you have, so that negative charge, whatever that is, its purpose is actually to give you feedback on how you can improve and what you can work on next. So whereas some people will try to eliminate that voice, actually it's a feedback mechanism to guide you towards the next part of growth. So rather than working against it, if you can use it as data, then actually you can use it in your favor.
Oh, wow. It makes so much sense. So how do you see, when you see you're doing something and all of a sudden a negative comes, do you actually stop yourself and be like, hey, Danny, no, that's a negative, don't do that, and try to talk yourself out? How do you keep on that positive?
I think it's less a case of keeping positive, and it's more a case of actually keeping balanced. So there'll be some occasions where I'll notice I'm negative in the moment, and I'll be able to actually say, okay, how is this benefiting me? How is this helping me? And I'll be able to change it in the moment. Quite often, I'll have a little patch where I've realized that I've been negative, and then I'll come out of it and then think, okay, I was in a bit of a patch there. What was going on? So some of it is in the moment, and I think the more you practice, the more you can do in the moment. I think the goal is to do it there and then, but actually noticing the state that you're in then allows you to ask the questions, and then you can reflect back a bit. So the more aware you are, the more pause you can give yourself. The bigger the pause, the more you can ask different questions. So it's a practice, and I think it's one that we're all developing. But don't think you're going to get it perfect, because it's not really going to happen.
I like how you said that. Don't think you're going to get it perfect, because the truth is you're always going to be growing. You're always going to be learning. Just like applied kinesiology, the muscle testing to test the truth of your thoughts and beliefs. Now, you're a you were in school for, what was it? You were a psychotherapist working with the advanced neurological therapy treatments, correct?
So I was working with a neurosurgeon who had training in psychology, and he is actually he was on the international board of kinesiologists. So we actually went into that. We did the muscle testing. So that's something that I used to do, but now I tend to just do it with words rather than muscle testing. But it's a fabulous tool to have, definitely.
So what is your day job like? Because you wrote the book during a lockdown, and you're a mental health coach. Are you in an office 9 to 5? How do you do your normal day jobs now?
So this is the office. So I'm in here most of the time, because I'm online now exclusively. And I have some clients in Europe, some in the States. So I'm in a few different time zones over the course of the day. So one of my challenges is actually to make sure that I get up, I get out, I do a little bit of exercise, have a little bit of a walk, and actually break things up, because it can be quite easy to sit in front of the computer and just do work, especially when the time zones are a little bit off. And what I also do is work with groups. So actually helping people come together as a group, I think, is a wonderful thing, because their one-to-one has its place, but actually group work is a slightly different dynamic. And that's something that I find really, really interesting as well. So most of my days are in the office, but it's spread out between clients.
Excuse me. Sorry. Sorry about that.
I have a drink for you.
I appreciate it. Joe, it's your turn to ask a question.
My turn to ask a question. Oh, wow. Of course, you're in areas I don't understand, so I'm enjoying learning. Well, I kind of want to go back a little bit to when you were discussing, the way I say it, you were saying like things connect, and I think that's wonderful. You're using a negative and looking at how you can grow to that and push you. The way I look at that is I kind of tell people is learn to recycle your pain, use it for a benefit. It's a little different than the angle approach you're using. But like you said earlier, find somebody, a therapist or something on YouTube or somebody that resonates with your style. And I'm a big fan of teaching people the same thing, is find someone that you like, that is your style. And the way I look at it is just recycle your pain. Take the bad things you went through and put them to positivity, help them push you through the next thing. And what I kind of call that, and I know you touched on this and you got a little more in detail, I keep it a little more vague, is I tell people, learn to trust the process and enjoy the journey. Because once you get to the end goal, most people don't plan for what's after, and they actually kind of go back down a little bit because they finally hit this big achievement. And it's well earned. You know, I congratulate anybody that ever hits a big goal of theirs. But then they're like, what do I do now? And then they kind of go back down. And we all suffer from it. But I always tell people, learn to enjoy the little landmarks on the way of your journey. You know, like maybe you lost 10 pounds. Maybe your ultimate goal is 30. But enjoy, celebrate the 10 pounds. That's still an achievement. So I think if you're able to do that along the way, it makes the whole process a little better along the way. So not so much a question.
It's the only way that the process works, isn't it? If you don't appreciate it on the way, then what's the point, really?
100%.
Now, going with that, it's I'm in my head, I think, because I'm listening to what you're saying on this, Joe, and being able to be out there and doing stuff. I think people need a chance to celebrate. I had a buddy that just realized in the last 2 days, I've had two very close friends' wives reach out because they attempted suicide. And the one guy, I asked what was going on. Like, what the heck, man? You're like, what did you do? And like, what's going on? And he felt unheard because he was really in a dark place and he was really struggling with things. And he wanted to be understood in a different way, but he wasn't able to communicate that. And then what made it interesting was all he wanted was to be heard that he's done better with his mental health. He's done better with this. And I thought that was interesting because he really had made some huge changes in the last year. And I was watching him develop into this. He's growing. Mental health should be praised more. I think sobriety should be. I saw that look, Joe. When I say praised, I mean when somebody does something that's out of the ordinary that builds them. So an alcoholic goes a year without drinking. They should have a get together with people to be able to cheer on like them to keep going and fighting for what they're doing, to keep that sobriety going. Where with mental health, if somebody's struggling and they're literally wanting to take their life, I personally think that having a day where you say, hey, we do love you, we are here for you, and people just reach out randomly, like you need that every now and then. It's not fake. It's appreciating somebody for pushing on and keeping going through, like we're saying. So for me, connecting those links for people are very difficult for a lot of people, and everybody's different. Yeah. What would be a way that people would, I'm going to say, just go buy your book, get the 6 steps to self-confidence. That's the first step. That's
in the comments. He did.
Yeah, he did. Wait, your dad did?
No, Brett did. I wanted to so Danny could see it. You haven't put it up yet.
I didn't know that. Oh, here it is. I didn't even see it. I was focusing on Danny.
I know. That's why I was trying to help out.
Well, thank you, Brett.
Like, yeah, you got 2 sold just on this episode, buddy. So, like, I really like how you're saying the connecting and all this. But I'm looking at your background, and you haven't always been like that. You've always you came up and you had other jobs. You said you were single. All this. How did you build your own self-confidence up, especially in 10 days? I have to be honest. I am struck by the 10 days, and all of a sudden you meet your fiancé.
Well, in that case, it was less that I built up my self-confidence in that day. It was more that I had a weight lifted from me, which allowed me to actually be myself. So it allowed me to just be me rather than trying to think I have to be someone else or I have to try and impress someone. It just took the weight off me to just allow me to actually be myself. And that's why such a big emphasis on what I do with clients is actually to help them feel comfortable expressing themselves, because one of the hardest things that we have in the world today is actually being comfortable standing out. Like it can be scary to stand out, whereas when you can just acknowledge the value that you have. So not saying like get puffed up and proud and sort of, beating the chest, like, look, all of this that I can do, but actually just having the knowledge in yourself and being able to be grateful and appreciate that then allows you to share it. So being able to express yourself is just, I think, one of the fundamental things. And what I tend to come back to is a bit of research by a woman called Bronnie Ware. And she was a palliative nurse who was working with dying people. I think she worked with thousands of them. And what she looked into was what are the biggest regrets of people who are dying. And number one on the list was not living a life true to their values. And number three on the list was people wish they had the courage to express themselves. Oh. So my work, if you like, my mantra is actually around helping people with those two, because I think those are big pieces of the puzzle. So she's got a book as well, which just goes into the 5 main regrets. So it's worth a read, definitely.
What was the name of the book? I'm not going to buy hers yet because I just bought yours.
I think it's something around the 5 regrets of the dying. It's something very similar to that. If you were to Google that, it would come up straight away.
Perfect. So you said it's about loving yourself, and I think that's a big thing because true value to knowing who you are, to knowing your best you, it's loving yourself is very difficult. Would you say that's something you're always going to be learning, obviously, but how would you say that first step going out and loving yourself to actually know what that meant? How would you recommend that to people? Like, how do I know I'm loving myself is the question I'm thinking.
So your first benchmark will be your internal dialogue, because the more negative or critical or harsh your internal dialogue, the more feedback you're getting that actually something needs to be different. When we think about that process of loving yourself, the way I view self-confidence is it's essentially the outlook that you have on the sum total of all of your past experiences. Mm-hmm. But those experiences are really only your perception of those experiences. So the more you have skewed perceptions of past events where you either feel ashamed or you feel guilty, those are the ones that tend to weigh you down the heaviest. And I would say if you could do one thing, it would be make a list of the things that you're ashamed of and then actually work on clearing those. Because when you can clear the shame, that frees up so much of that space in your head that allows you to then have time to do other things. Obviously, there's lots of different things. So there may be a trauma that you had that actually is the biggest priority for you. So everyone will be different. But a pattern that I have seen, and particularly for me as well, was that shame can just lurk. It just sits in the background, and sometimes you get so used to it, you don't do anything about it. But when you clear that, it's a transformational experience. So I'd advise people find out what the shame is, because it's not true. It's just a skewed perception, and actually clear that out because you don't need to carry it.
I love that. That was great advice. Clear it out. Sorry, you hit a couple of my questions with that answer, so I got stalled there for a second. Because my next question is with building the confidence in expressing themselves and finding their true value. How do you help break that? Because it's very simple. I say this to people all the time. You can be standing in line at the gas station. and the person behind you goes to make a conversation, it's 90% of the time, it seems like it's negative. Oh, the weather's bad. Oh, this is that. Oh, they're so slow. It's that little twist of putting a positive twist on that people aren't used to. And that's the mindset that's a change. It's like, it's not just hearing the complaints and diving into it. It's switching it and making it something else. Would you say that is like an almost every situation thing, is you have to make sure you're resetting yourself and seeing how you're interpreting it? Is it positive or negative?
It's actually, I would say it's actually moving away from labeling something as either positive or negative, because that's what creates a charge. Whereas when you can see it has both, then the charge is neutral. So if we think about it from a physiology perspective, when you really think something is positive, so you're elated, you're absolutely over the moon with it, then that shifts all your hormones in one direction, which gets you really elevated and high. Whereas on the other side, if you see something as being all negative and being awful, then your hormones do the exact opposite and you'll have a different response. So the more we do that black and white labeling of things, actually the more polarized we become. So the more we can see it as having both sides, then the more we can actually stay more grounded. And I think the more grounded we are, the more stable we are. The more stable we are, then the better decisions we make, if that makes sense.
It makes perfect sense. I understand it. I don't care about the listeners as long as I'm getting something. No, I'm just kidding, guys. Just kidding. That was a good joke by me to make sure everybody laughs. But you're getting married. How old are you? I have to ask because you look awfully young.
I'm 33.
You're 33. Okay, because I'm like at 27 in your bio. It says that at 27 is when you started this journey. So
yes, yeah.
You're at 6 years. Have you heard how big of a difference your life has changed from family members, friends, anything along those lines? Have you been hearing that and seeing the difference yourself?
Yeah, definitely. More, I think it's the bigger contrast is when I maybe see people who I haven't spoken to for maybe 10 years. And then actually the difference is quite dramatic. Whereas, when the friends that are with you along the journey, you're all kind of growing and changing together. So it doesn't stand out so much. Whereas when you've got a little bit of separation, then it's a little bit different. So I can remember speaking to a couple of friends when I published my book, and they were like, I can't believe you've written a book. Like, how could you do that? Because we kind of put this idea of writing a book up on a pedestal, don't we? We kind of think, oh, wow, it's writing a book. But actually, when you're doing it, if you break it down into little pieces, like anybody can do it, it just seems a bit overwhelming if you don't break it down. So I'd say the bigger time gap, more people have noticed. And the people who have been on the journey with me, I notice it in them and they notice it in me. So that bit's nice.
That's awesome. That's awesome. So something we do here on VH is we actually go and say something at the end about how we want to leave our impact on the world. You are already doing that. I am super excited to read your book. Like, that's not me just saying it. Like, for real, you've done some. I'm excited because you made some great comments on things that everybody can use, and that's in a 1-hour interview, like a 55-minute interview. You did. So reading your book is going to be something where if you all of a sudden get random emails from me, please know it's just me wanting to know more and grow. So
ask away, go for it.
I love it. I love it. So with the end of the show today, you are already leaving your impact through a positive way. Hello, Donna McGee. I haven't seen you in a while. Sorry, one of our regulars. So Joe and I usually say something that's going on. You see that smile he has? It's because he never changes what he says. He literally has it. What'd you say, buddy?
Consistency is key, Brandon.
So be the change you want to see as Joe's. I've had him even stop saying it because it never changed. So I started, I just wrote it and made it a scroll for us. But for me, I want to give everybody, today is a Wednesday. It's the middle of the week. Building yourself up is difficult, but you've made it to Wednesday. Be proud of who you are. Be proud of where you're going. Look to at the light at the end of this week's tunnel. Stop looking at the end of the month. Look at the good things you've done now and go towards that. Get over that hump of this week and love yourself. And it's been a long day. That's not my best motivational speech at the end of these, but it's a good one. So Danny, how would you want to leave everybody? Team Unicorn is out here today. You wouldn't understand. I wear a unicorn onesie on the morning show to work out, and it's to get people wanting to come out and actually try something different. If I can put a onesie on and look like the guy that I do, I think anybody can go out there and have some fun and put their best foot forward in their house.
Yeah, love it.
But tell us, you're already leaving that impact. How do you want to leave your impact on the world?
I would like to leave my impact on the world in terms of being known for someone who actually helps people alongside rather than up the front. So I think it's actually it's a lecturer from the States somewhere, and he talks about there's two types of leadership. One type of leadership is where there's one individual at the front and then everyone looks up to. And then there's a different type of leadership where you're standing next to someone and you're all moving forwards together. So what I would like is to be known for being that type of person. That's my goal.
I love it. That is a great goal. I think that your book is going to be something I have a lot of fun reading. I have already sent a copy of the Amazon link to the book club girl and said, hey, check out this interview today. So please know this was, I was excited. Ferran was excited when he told me who he got that he got you on here and all that. So this was a great topic. Do you have anything, a website or anything you'd like me to throw out there for everybody before we go?
Yeah, so the main way to find out more about me is to go to my website. So that's dannygreevescoaching.com with a few W's in front. www.dannygreevescoaching.com, and that's where you'll find out more about me.
Greeves, correct?
Yes.
Perfect. Sent. Guys, that's the link. Go give him all the follows. Go give him all the likes. Go give him all the shares. Buy Danny Greeves' book, and do us a favor. Leave a comment if you're watching this afterwards, and just know we're grateful you guys are here. Danny, absolutely great meeting you today. I look forward to Ferran connecting us again to have you be a part of the book club so we could talk about your book.
Yeah.
And yeah, I'm going to make Joe read it too. So I'm excited.
I got my
It's been an absolute pleasure, and thank you for having me.
Absolutely. I look forward to catching up with you again in the future. Guys, give us some love. Give us a subscribe. This was The H, an honest conversation, health, hemp, and happiness. Thanks, guys. See ya.